back to Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Lynn Elias, creator, host, MovieSharkDoubleur.com. Find me on Twitter, MovieSharkD. Find me on Examiner. Find me in Culver City Observer. Find my reviews and interviews everywhere. And, of course, every Monday you can find us right here live on Adrenaline Radio, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, with Behind the Lens. So welcome to all of you. It's been a really big this past week. Been screening a lot of the big Christmas releases and going behind the lens and below the line with a lot of the artisans and craftsmen of those films. So we'll be hearing from bits and pieces of those throughout the remainder of award seasons up to the Academy Awards. The big story on Behind the Lens was the Star Wars The Force Awakens junket yesterday, held at a secret location in Los Angeles. We had multiple panels of press conferences, including favorites: Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, J.J. Abrams, Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, who you heard from here last week, Daisy Ridley, Larry Kasdan, producer Kathleen Kennedy. Next week, you will hear excerpts of that when we get some clean audio from Disney. But needless to say, I got to talk up Star Wars and the presentation that Disney put together yesterday. I had the pleasure, Bob Iger himself was there. I had the pleasure and privilege to get to talk to Bob for a few minutes. As many of you may know, my father worked with Bob for a number of years. So it was really nice to catch up with him and to see him personally so invested and involved in Star Wars. He could possibly be the biggest fan amongst everyone. There is a lot of product coming out for the film that you haven't seen yet or that is just breaking. I have been assured by the merchandise marketing reps at Disney that all of you that have been trying to get Star Wars merchandise, there are new shipments that are being held back until the film opens on the 18th. So when you see empty shelves everywhere, fear not. More Star Wars merchandise is coming. There's some gorgeous watches. And when you watch the video of today's show later in the week, I photographed all of this yesterday, so Jordan will be cutting in all of these pictures so you can see some of the things I'm talking about. One of the coolest things that they have done is for the Disney Infinity, the Star Wars The Force Awakens, and the characters. Yes, they gave me a Kylo Ren. I'm quite excited about that. But nothing works yet. You can get all your little game pieces, all your little players, but nothing works. And we could not even see exactly what is in the Star Wars Force Awakens Disney Infinity game, because this is the first time that the game follows the film. So for them to even have allowed to let us even try out the system and try out the game, there are spoilers galore. So even that was a secret to all the press yesterday. But exciting to see the capabilities, to see all the players that are already out there, all the game pieces, to see which ones are coming up. You jewelry fanatics out there like myself, 4 or 5 different watch styles are coming up, multiple t-shirt styles. I am, of course, wearing one today in keeping with the spirit and counting down the days to The Force Awakens. And then we also there is this fabulous, as my sound engineer Brian was explaining to me earlier, this is what? It's like Google Cardboard, correct, Brian? Okay. And you download the Star Wars app on your iPhone or your Android. System will work on both. You download the app, you then slide it into one of the nifty little cardboard viewers, kind of like the Viewmaster of generations ago, but for the 21st century. And there are 9 of these little boxes. For Verizon customers, they are free. Otherwise, you have to pay for them. But for Verizon customers, which I am, so I'm going to get all 9. Right now, only 2 are out, and it takes you through chapters of the movie, and it's, virtual reality, and you just move around the room and follow, and you go through. It is, I can say in all honesty, it's the first time I have ever tried anything like this before, and I did try it yesterday, and I just think it's one of the coolest things around. So I can't wait to go to my Verizon store to get my chapter 2, and then as they come out between now and the 18th, the other 7. So be on the lookout for these. And Verizon customers, something free that's Star Wars. So there you have it. You're going to get to hear, I'll be talking more about costuming. A lot of costumes on display, including some beautiful, beautiful work in the Kylo Ren costuming. Harrison Ford's costume. Photograph that, Princess Leia's. Carrie Fisher describes Princess Leia's costume as looking like that of a gas station attendant, but with a very long jacket over it. That very long jacket is an exquisite piece of silk moire, which she actually wore in the film and was on display yesterday. Stormtroopers, snowtroopers, just amazing. Some amazing, glorious settings. Disney outdid themselves. I applaud you. I thank you immensely. And I can't wait to see the film. We did not get to see the film, just so everybody knows. I haven't seen it either. But so next week you're going to hear some of the antics that went on at the press conference. And then when you watch this week's show, and next week's also, lots of photos that I took. We're going to be interspersing them, editing them into the video for your pleasure and entertainment. But I am so excited today with my guest, 2 authors. Any of you that have read my columns over the years, my reviews, interviews, I am very passionate about reading, about book adaptations to film. I am a real stickler on them, literary license that may be taken. But reading was such an important part of my life, and I think every child should. The earlier they start reading, the better it is, because it spurs the imagination and it takes you to places that you may never get to go. And 2 such authors I am so happy to have today. Number 1, coming up at the quarter hour mark, we've got Steve Alten, New York Times bestseller. His first book years ago, still one of my favorites. Forget about Jaws and Peter Benchley. Meg. Meg is the shark, the behemoth of all behemoths. Absolutely a megalodon from ancient times. Meg has now been re-released for its 20th anniversary. There is a new version that's out with illustrations and some fun, cool things that Steve's going to talk about. Plus, we're going to talk about Warner's picking up the rights to the film, and Eli Roth is going to be directing it. Now, anybody that's seen Eli's Green Inferno recently with what he's done with cannibals, it's going to be really interesting what he does with sharks that can swallow, I think, all the cannibals that he had in Green Inferno in one mouthful. So really exciting to have Steve here. In addition to the Meg series, he's got so many others. A Grim Reaper series is one of my favorites that he's done. Also, he's done the Trench, Goliath, The Lock, modern day thriller about the Loch Ness Monster, the Shell Game. Just exciting stuff that a lot of it is rooted in science, and then it becomes sci-fi and fiction. And so it's great to have Steve joining me in a few minutes. And then at the half-hour mark, children's book author Nancy Ann Guettier. Her books are beyond enchanting. We're going to be starting off talking about Mermaids on Mars, which has been made into a short film. It will remind a lot of you of the Rankin Bass styling with the puppetry, claymation of the Christian children's show Davy and Goliath from decades past. Absolutely charming mix of live action and puppetry in this short film, which will be showing in Los Angeles on the 12th and 13th at the Los Angeles International Children's Film Festival over at LACMA, I believe. I'll have Nancy clarify that for us when she's online, but her books are so charming. And I got to give a shout out to a little friend in Boston, Genevieve Norton. Genevieve and her brother Harry. Nancy was kind enough, she and her publicist, to send copies of all 5 of her books to Genevieve, who I understand absolutely loves the one called Roy G. Biv is mad at me because I love pink. And Genevieve loves pink, and the heroine in Nancy's books is named Genevieve. So we're going to talk to Nancy about Mermaids on Mars, Roy G. Biv, the adorable book, I Wish. What other ones do I have here? Circus in the Sky, and, as I'm destroying the whole set, Jude's Moon. The illustrations of the books. Parents, I'm telling you right now, go to nancylandkids.com. You can order the books there directly. You will not go wrong with any of these books. They are absolutely fabulous. Some are paperback, some are hardback. Most of them are illustrated by, well, no, they all have different, we've got Andrew Vera illustrating. We've got Tina Cash Walsh, who illustrates Mermaids on Mars and Jude's Moon. Absolutely enchanting. Great use of color. Very just engaging for any child. And these are for boys and girls alike, as you're going to find out when Nancy is on the line with us. So get ready for a blend of when literature meets film today. But right now we're going to take a short break before Steve Alten calls, and we'll be right back. Behind the Lens is sponsored in part by the Culver City Observer. Located in the heart of Screenland, Culver City Observer is available in print and online at www.culvercityobserver.com. And welcome back to Behind the Lens. And joining me right now is my fellow Philadelphian and fellow Temple Owl, Steve Alten.
Go Eagles.
Go. Hey. Hey, we were just talking about that earlier. I missed the game yesterday.
Oh, no.
Because of the Star Wars junket. I don't know. The Eagles or Star Wars. That's a toss-up.
Well, you got to go with Star Wars the way the Birds were playing, but
I hear they were amazing yesterday, though.
Amazing and lucky.
Well, I am very amazed and very lucky to have you joining me today, Steve. I mean, this is, as I've emailed you before, I mean, you're Grim Reaper. I love Grim Reaper End of Days. And Meg is just, I fell in love with that when it first came out. And I still have my original copy, my hardback. This is exciting. This doesn't happen too often in the literary world with anniversary editions of books coming out.
Well, it's an interesting story because I wrote Meg back in 1995, and for the 20th anniversary, I wanted to redo it, and I had written a prequel a couple years ago called Meg Origins that was just an ebook. It wasn't big enough to be printed as a separate book. So I wanted to combine the two stories, add the prequel first and then the original Meg. But when I put them together, they didn't mesh because the writing from 20 years ago was so different than the way I write today. I mean, my writing has evolved so much, so I realized that, this is not going to work. So my only choice was to rewrite the entire book, which I did. So new dialogue, new scenes, expanded edition, changes in the character, and basically came up with a whole new story.
How difficult is it for you to take your earlier works and totally rework them?
Well, it's time consuming. I really only thought it would take a week or two, and it took 4 months. And it's I wanted it to be right, and it's not that the story has drastically changed, because it hasn't, but I just wanted it to be sharper. 20 years ago, it was my first time I had ever written a book when the original May came out, and so like I said, my writing has evolved a lot since then.
What is your fascination? Because you have such a grasp of sharks, the shark world, and this megalodon. What prompted your fascination with sharks?
Well, when I was about 15 years old, Jaws came out, and I love Jaws, and Jaws spurred me on to read more books about great white sharks, real attack stories. And in most of the books that I had read, there was a little blurb about Carcharodon Megalodon, the 70-foot prehistoric cousin of the great white, and usually accompanied by a black and white photo taken at the Smithsonian Institute of a big megalodon jaw with 6 nerdy-looking scientists sitting inside of it. And 20 years later, when I was 35, I was reading a Time magazine article, and on the front cover of the magazine was the Mariana Trench, which is this amazing 1,500-mile-long, 40-mile-wide gorge 7 miles below the surface of the Western Pacific.
Oh, yeah, I am fascinated. That fascinated and struck me when I was in elementary school, and it's never gotten out of my head.
And, it's unexplored, and the article was talking about hydrothermal vents and all these amazing new life forms that we've discovered at the bottom of the ocean. And, the seeds were planted right then. I was thinking, wouldn't it be a cool story if that giant shark that I had read about years ago was in there? And I couldn't think of the name of it, so I went to the library. There was no internet in 1995, and I found the picture, and I started doing research, and I just set my mind to it that I was going to write this story.
I mean, and then, I mean, you've just taken off since then, delving into so many different, themes with your books. But something that you do that I just love is your Adopt an Author program.
Well, Adopt an Author is, it kind of started on its own. After May came out, I started getting email from students who were all telling me the same thing. They hated to read, but they loved reading Meg. And then I started getting email from teachers, science teachers and language arts teachers, English teachers, who told me they were using Meg in the classroom because it was getting the students to read. And then I found out that Meg had been named the number one selection by the Young Adult Library Services Association for reluctant readers. And I knew something was happening that I needed to get involved with. My background's in education. I have a bachelor's degree in teaching and coaching in high school. I have a master's in sports medicine and a doctorate in education. And so I sort of realized that, it was time for me to get involved in this. And so we set up Adopt an Author. And basically, for teachers who want to use the books in classrooms, we provide free curriculum materials, tests, quizzes, projects, a free poster for every teacher, and we pay for everything ourselves. But the additional thing about Adopt an Author is that myself and other authors will go visit the schools or do a Skype interview in the class or an in-class conference call by speakerphone. And as the students are reading the book, they'll email me, and I always email everybody back. And we started off with probably 3 teachers back in 1999, and we're over 10,000 registered teachers in the country now.
Wow. I just think that is amazing because as I said at the top of my show, it's like there is nothing better than for kids to start reading and to get involved in reading because it just will take their imaginations to places that they may never go, and it just spurs and inspires them. And of course, so many great movies, and sometimes not so great ones, have been inspired by or come directly from books. And we're about to see that happen with Meg, aren't we?
Well, it's going into production soon. They're still casting, and we're hoping for a big announcement from Warner Brothers soon. But I'd say it's still going to be a couple summers before the movie's in theaters.
Now, Eli Roth is going to be directing, and Eli, I think, is one of the prime people who would be perfect, to direct Meg. Either Eli or one of the cadre that are ensconced at Blumhouse. Somebody like Ty West, but I think Ty's moved on to bigger and better things with the Fast and Furious franchise. But this is exciting to see this brought to the big screen and to have somebody like Eli attached to direct this. Now, are you involved in the screenplay? Because I know you've written screenplays before.
The screenplay for Meg that was used by producer Belle Avery to raise the money. She raised over $100 million from private investors. Was my script that I worked on with her for a few years, and it's evolved now. There's a new screenwriter attached, but essentially it stays pretty true to the book.
Is that important?
And, as far as Eli is concerned, I was when I first heard that he was named the director. My first response was, well, that's an unusual choice. But then as I've gotten to see him, and he was on Shark After Dark during Shark Week this year, and he's really a shark fanatic, and what he brings to the movie is that, he's got a dark edge to him, and his movies, are, edge of the seat thrillers that, don't rely on special effects. They rely on the plotting and his direction, and so I think he really brings something special to the Meg series.
Mm-hmm. Now, will you be working, on the film at all, or serving as a consultant to make sure that it does stay true to your vision? Or are you just going to turn it over and say, okay, do what you will?
Well, Belle Avery, who's the lead producer, is, in sync with the things that I am doing, and so I trust her implicitly, and I think it's a pretty good team. So I'm not worried about it, but whatever they want me for, all they have to do is ask.
Well, you can be sure that I'm going to be hounding all my reps at Warner Brothers. Got any news? Got any news? Got any news on this? Because I'm curious to see what Eli does with it, because I think he's going to have to go with CGI in this one, which I know he doesn't like doing.
No, there was an article about it that came out recently, and he's 100% committed to CGI. This is just, to look right, you've got to have that great shark. And Warner's other marine movie, if you will, The Heart of the Sea, comes out, I think, next week, and the CGI in that is supposed to be really good.
Well, I'm actually screening that tonight, so I'll have a better idea. Now, Steve, because you just keep writing, and you have such a diversity in the themes of your books. What is it that inspires you when you write? Where does your inspiration come from?
Well, probably the research. I'm really key on research. I'll start off with a concept for a story, and then research the heck out of it, and as I create a beat sheet and an outline, I'll continue the research, and then once I start writing, the devil's in the details, and so I make sure that I get every little detail that needs to be in there, so that it's educational for the reader without being overburdened. Mm-hmm. Because I want them to come out with the same things that I'm coming out with, the knowledge of this new subject, and in a process that keeps the story moving. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite among your books to date?
That's I get asked that a lot. The books, a lot of them are so different, and it's sort of like picking children. If you have a favorite child, you may, but you never want to say it. But I think this new expanded edition of Meg, which is coming out this week, is really good. It's what I love about it is that the writing is updated, the plotting has been energized, and I also included, in addition to the prequel, I included 17 original pieces of art that were done over the years, whether for the movies or commissioned from one or two of my artists. Mm-hmm. And so it adds to the reading experience. So I'd have to say that the new paperback edition that's coming out this week is probably as top-notch as it's going to get.
And where can people find this new paperback edition that's coming out this week?
Well, they're just going to start getting into the stores over the next week or two. So the easiest thing you can do is you can go on BarnesandNoble.com and order the paperback edition, or call your local bookstore and ask for it to be special ordered, and they'll make sure they get a bunch of copies in.
Do you know? Will it be available through your website?
No, I don't sell the books on my website, but you can certainly see the book, and there'll be a link to order it too.
Oh, fabulous. Now, you mentioned that your writing has changed over the years. How would you describe how your writing has changed?
Well, it's important for me to continue to grow as an author, and when Meg first came out, it was my first book, and I wanted to become better at developing characters. That was important to me. So, I try to read books that have done very well and are very popular over the years, and try to gain a little bit of something from every author that I read about. And then once you find your own voice, there was a big change in me from Meg. There was a slight change from Meg to The Trench, my second book, which was also part of the Meg series. But then there was a big jump for Domain, which was my third book, because I really had a lot of trouble plotting out the book, and I really had trouble with the publisher, who wanted a completely different story. Domain is about the Mayan calendar's 2,500-year-old doomsday prophecy that predicted that humanity would come to an end on December 21st, 2012, and I was about 10 years ahead of the curve on writing stories about it, and I was having a tough time doing it. But when I finally figured it out, something clicked, and my writing really took off.
Well, I just love your writing. I love your writing, Steve. And your books are the kind, like with Grim Reaper, End of Days, I could not put it down. I start one of your books, and I have to read it all the way through at one time.
Well, Grim Reaper, End of Days was a tough book to write. I got to tell you that one took me about 2 years, and that's a long time to be writing a book, and it's just, that's a very layered story. Every time I go back and go through it, and I find something else that I wasn't expecting, and so that is a complex book.
Well, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending 2 years on that book, because I just love that book. Are there any of your books that you would like to go back and revisit again, like you've done with Meg?
Maybe The Trench, just to calm down one of the characters in there who curses like a drunk sailor, and so that the book can be used more for the Adopt an Author program. Other than that, no, I'm pretty satisfied with the rest of the books.
Steve, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. This is a real treat for me to have you call in. It is, everybody must go to Barnes & Noble and get hold of the new copy of Meg. And is there another new book coming up after Meg that you're working on?
Yeah, I'm working on something called The Second Angel, and it's similar in some ways to the Shell Game. It's very topical because it deals with terrorism and ISIS and things like that. And
wow,
it's got a sort of a major surprise in it.
And any idea when that will be hitting the bookshelves?
I'm still writing it, so it's it's probably going to be 4 or 5 months before I just even finish the writing. But it's I have a new publishing company now that I'm part owner in, and so we can get things out a lot quicker.
Oh, well, I definitely look forward to that. And I hope when it's done, I would love to have you call back in again.
No, I would love to do that. Appreciate it.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. Meg in bookstores starting next week, this week.
You can order it now, and they'll start in the next week or two. They'll start hitting bookstores, but call your bookstore first to make sure they have them.
And if they don't, yell at them and tell them to get it.
Or ask nicely.
Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Steve Alten, New York Times best-selling author of Meg. Get the new book, people. And now I am thrilled to have another author. I'm just in little literary heaven today. Welcome, Nancy Guettier.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Hi, Nancy. Welcome to Behind the Lens. I am thrilled to have you. Number one, you have an incredible rep. Dea is amazing, and your books are just fabulous.
Oh, thank you so much.
Your books are fabulous. I'm 58 years old, and I love reading them. I can just imagine, and I have to thank you. What you and Dea did, sending these books to my little friend Genevieve in Boston, to her and her brother Harry, who are the perfect age for these stories. And, you know, it's the fact that you have heroines named Genevieve.
I know, I thought that was so special.
And and I told Day I'll send her pictures. Their dad took pictures of them with all of your books, which they are now in love with.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
So
I know Genevieve's not a common name, so that was pretty exciting to know that it was going to a Genevieve.
And and one of the exciting things, Mermaids on Mars, because I've also seen the short film. And what a charming adaptation to a live action and puppetry blend. You know, of a mom telling her sick daughter in bed a story that just unfolds and comes to life. Absolutely charming design. But before we get into the adaptation, I want to talk about the printed page, the beautiful illustrations in all of your books, and where these fanciful yet instructive. There you have little moral lessons in all of them.
Yes.
And, you say important things like Mermaids on Mars. Save your oceans. They're trying to take water away on Mars, and mermaids have to come here, but, we've got to protect them here if they're here in the waters, just like we have to protect the whales and the fish and all this other stuff. So where do these great ideas come from for your books?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Where do your great ideas come from for these books?
Well, my kids inspire me every day. I actually adopted my 3 beautiful children from birth, and just watching them grow, I grew with them. So I was just so amazed by their just natural curiosity for the world around them, and then I just started writing stories for them and actually with them. So, my first book was really for my daughter Genevieve, who loved the color pink, and, that was the first book, and I kind of came up with a fun way to help her to discover other colors by meeting the rainbow, Roy G. Biv, which is an acronym for the, sequence of the colors of the rainbow. And, after I did that one, then my sons were like, well, where's my book? So, I kept going and going. And Mermaids on Mars came about because, I live in San Francisco, and we always are experiencing a drought. And they were wasting water in the yards, spraying the hose, and, or overflooding the bathtub. So, I wanted to find a fun way to reach kids and explain to them the importance of this precious resource. And, they don't want to hear the boring facts. So,
No.
Like I set it on Mermaids on Mars. Why not? Because Mars doesn't have water, even though there's evidence of it now. But, it was kind of a fun way to really let them into a world where they can understand how important water is through the lens or the eyes of the mermaids.
Well, and as luck would have it, with all the exploration and all the talk about the space race and going to Mars, very timely too.
Yeah, well, I wrote it a few years ago. I can't remember the exact date, but I've always been fascinated with the planet and the skies, and that there's more out there in the universe, and so I always live in this childlike fantasy world, and but I did do my research on Mars, and there are ice pack waters in certain areas, and then I learned that it was covered 1/3 covered with water, and so then the story became this is facts, this is real facts, maybe the mermaid part is a little fantasy, but there was water on Mars, and it is a planet that we want to explore. And Matt Damon came out with that film Mars, and there's possibilities there. And now NASA found water on Mars, so it really shows that you can dream and fantasize, but there's some things are based on facts, and this happened to work perfectly with my story.
Oh, I mean, it's that's the whole idea of the mermaids on Mars, and I couldn't help but think of, and now the science actually backs up the water theories. So maybe there were mermaids on Mars.
You never know. Evolution. So I came up with this fun concept that the first mermaids originated on Mars, and then due to environmental issues, they morphed into Martians. It's possible, even though it sounds so fantastic, but that's kind of how it works in my story. And it's based in truth, but you never know, because everything's the great unknown. So, but I love the fantasy aspect of it.
And people, when they watch the show, since we do video the show, and I have all the books on display here. So when they watch the video later this week, you'll see the book, Mermaids on Mars. There's actually a section here for kids, Mermaids 5 Rules for Conserving Water. And these are just charming. Charming. Cutting down on showers. There should be rules for me, too. It's just even flushing toilets. And we all know kids in bathrooms and toilets that's a go-getter. They relate to that.
Exactly. So through the eyes of the mermaids, it makes it, easier for kids to accept the facts. Like if I would just say, oh, don't do this, don't do that, they'd be like, oh, Mom, stop. But because the mermaids say, don't flush the toilet too much, don't take these long showers, don't don't water your shower or your plants for hours and hours. There's just little simple things we could do to help preserve this natural resource, and they're really small ways for us to do it, but it really does make an impact on the environment, and just being aware of it is really important for me, and to have children at a small age be aware of the importance of this resource, I think is really valuable. So that's why I was really excited to get this book out.
Oh, I mean, timely, topical. It's just Governor Brown should be like buying hundreds of these and distribute them in schools.
Yeah.
Now, in the adaptation to the short film version, which will be screening here in Los Angeles this weekend at the Los Angeles International Children's Film Festival, now we actually get to see a Martian, and we find out how the mermaids came to Earth. How was that adaptation process for you?
Well, the book and the film, they're kind of two different stories, even though they both have the same important message about water conservation. But, due to budgeting, in the film, I wrote it as a full-length feature film, but because of budgeting, I had to turn it into just 20 minutes to get my message out there, which I still think, Athena Studios did a beautiful job helping me adapt this to 20 minutes message. But, they definitely come through the portal to get to planet Earth, but still important. In the book, they go through a rocket ship, but and still the big message is they had to come here, and they had to appreciate the waterways here, and helping kids and parents really understand the importance of it. And mermaids can't live without water, and we can't either. So. I think it's a good message for kids, and when you see it based on Mars with this Martian taking away their water supply, it really kind of wants to make you stand up and take action, and I think kids really resonate with this message.
Oh, and he is hilarious.
Oh, he's my favorite character. At first I was like, I just love mermaids, because I have these T-shirts, Team Martian or Team Mermaids. But the Martian, he is just so lovable, even though he's bent on destruction and taking the waters away from the mermaids. He's really lovable. And, the reason why is I really wanted it to be a musical. I grew up, watching so many musicals. I love Willy Wonka and Wizard of Oz. And I wanted to make him really fun and lovable. I didn't want it to be a scary film. I think with children, I want to get the message across, but I don't want to build their life on fear. So it was a kind of a fun, whimsical way. He's a lovable character, even though he's taken the water away. But he didn't want to hurt the mermaids. He just wanted the mermaids to be like him. So,
Because
it's
he was
still a
in
love
love.
message in there as well, even though his ideas of how to get there were a little questionable. But he's definitely my favorite character.
Oh,
And I love his song. And he's wonderful.
he is. I mean, I can honestly say he is my favorite character too. He is just so much fun.
Yeah.
And what you also do in the adaptation, you bring in father and son, mother and daughter.
Yeah.
So this becomes, a bonding experience of parents and children too.
Yes. Yeah, well, I totally believe in family. We all have different families right now. Like I explained earlier, my kids are adopted, and, we all have different families. This is the ideal family in the film. But, it's learning from each other and, learning to believe. And the song, my dad is my hero. I think that really touches my heart because I believe, all of our parents, either dad or mom or, caretaker, children do have this bond with somebody that's really going to help them, teach them a message. And, this little boy really believed in his dad, even though everybody was against him. It was kooky. He just really trusted. So there's a lot of good messages in this film. It's about believing in yourself, believing in others, even when everybody is against it. And, even believing in the fantastic, like that there are mermaids, And this little boy really faces a lot of these contradictions, and he faces them head on, and, he comes out being a better person in the end, and even having to keep a secret just to protect himself, even though letting it out would, clear his name and his dad's name. So there's really good messages in this film, and that's what my quest is with my books is, bringing the moral of the story back to film and literature.
Well, and, your Circus in the Sky book, it is fantastic, about the 88 constellations. And the watercolor drawings in there from your illustrators, absolutely stunning. But what we learn, I go through the book and I keep seeing things that I remember learning in elementary school, but they've escaped my mind has drawn a blank after all these years. Yeah. And right away I remember the joy and thrill, Ursa Minor and Major, rolling through the sky. And it took me back to, I thought that was really fun that there were big and little bears in the sky. And you learn something or your memory is refreshed as an adult with each one of your books.
Yeah, that was really important to me. Like, I wanted to share things from my childhood. Like, I love the Greek mythology of the constellations. I don't know how they came up with all these stories. I'm not an expert on it, but I just was always so, gravitating towards these Greek mythology about the night sky. And, I really wanted the books to be not only kids can learn, but then parents will want to even learn more. Like, I remember that, so let's look up even more. So, because my family, we always had the Encyclopedia Britannica around, so if we had a question, we would just pull it out. Now we have Google today. So I want the parents to, be Googling, let's learn about a little bit more. This is so fascinating and it's exciting, and let's learn a little bit more. So they're not just books that you put down at the end of the night and they're done. You want to take the book outside and look at the night sky and learn a little bit more, Google more about, the constellations and these stories that have been written. So that's kind of all of my books kind of take you there. They tell you a story, but you want to learn a little bit more. So it's for the parent and the child to keep growing and learning together.
Well, I can't tell you how excited I was when I opened Jude's Moon, and we have in here everything, all the phrases we hear meteorologists and talk about the moon, the waxing moon, the waning moon, and you have this wonderful diagram, colors with a smiley moon. I now have a handy dandy chart that I can go to when I
You're
forget.
right. I wanted to make it easy. Like, learning is, it's scary for kids. Like, oh, that's so complicated. But, put a cute little smile and legs and a dancing little moon. And it's easier, it's to attract the kids to learn more. You have to kind of, get to their level or get to their inspiration point to make it fun to learn. So it's effortless.
Oh,
That's kind of was my goal. Like, take away the complications. Just make it easy to learn. This is fun. This is really exciting stuff.
Oh, I'm so excited by all of your books because it touches on things that I learned and, may have forgotten. They've, slipped out of the eardrums over the years. But now also key are your illustrations. How involved are you with your illustrators?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. So when I wrote the first book, I, enlisted my daughter Genevieve, and she's an artist. She loves painting with watercolors. So how it happened, I wasn't always a book author. We sat in the kitchen, and we came up with a story together, and I would have her draw the pictures, and then I would staple the pages together. And I'm like, oh, look, we have a book. So she made the original mock-ups for Roy G. Biv Is Mad at Me because I love pink and Mermaids on Mars. So she actually drew them.
Wow.
And I love a child's imagination so much that was it. So I used her drawings as my mock-up to share with the illustrators to help create the illustrations that you see today. So it was really a shared project with me and my daughter in creating these books.
Oh, my God. I mean, they're fabulous. Now, where can people get your books?
Well, you can go to nancylandkids.com, and it shows you how to purchase the books either on Amazon. Amazon has all the books, Barnes & Noble's, Powell's books. So go to nancylandkids.com so you can see a little snippet of the books. You can, flip through a few pages and learn about the messaging, and then find out which book is right for you, and then go to any of those reputable websites to purchase the book. They come in hard copy and also a soft copy, and the soft copies I think are under $10 and hard copies under $20. So they make great gifts for the holidays, and again, they're really a great gift because they keep giving. Parents and kids can learn together for so much because these subject matters, stars and moons and rainbows go on forever and ever. And it's just a great way to share and learn with your child.
Oh, well, I mean, I can't promote your books enough because I just think they are just so fantastic. And I've been on the Nancy Land Kids site, and parents, it is a wonderfully comprehensive site. And it's totally kid-safe, kid-friendly. Which is also so important in this day and age.
Yeah.
So now what is next? What can we expect next? Will there be a TV series for Mermaids on Mars, or will any of your other books be adapted?
I like to dream big, and actually Chuck Williams from Williams-Sonoma, I worked for Williams-Sonoma for 25 years, just passed away, actually being 100, and he said, love what you do and people will love you for it. So I really believe in that message. So my dream really is to just send them out into the universe. I would love for Mermaids on Mars, it's in the film festivals right now, to either be a full-length feature film. I see great possibilities there because I wrote it as a full-length. It's actually a musical, and I wrote 12 songs for it. Or, original TV programming, because I really believe in educational content, so either working with PBS Kids, Disney Junior, something, taking my books and turning them into actual, programming, because I think kids today, books are great, but I think the visual aspect is really important, which I also love, and it's a way for me to combine my books and my music. So that would be, to me, the dream, to, create this, turn these books into original programming for kids, toddlers, and kids to watch and grow and learn from.
Well, and it's definitely something that we are very short on out there in programming now. So I, for one, would love to see that happen and have everything turned into companion pieces with either a film, a short film, or cable TV programming, and then have, a book that goes with it. You can't do much better than that.
Yeah.
So now,
I think most of the best films, come from books. So I think that's kind of the future. Right now, I think their kids are being bombarded with a lot of images and graphics, and it's really fun. But going back to kind of old school, I really believe in nothing's really original, and taking from the past and bringing it into the future, and just turning those really great books into programming, so kids can have the moral of the story, take something away with them instead of just eye candy.
and for all of my listeners here, don't worry about missing the website or when the video later in the week. We will have all that contact information printed right on the video for you, so that you can very easily find, Nancy and Nancyland Kids and all of these books. Another book in the works?
Yeah, so I wrote a book for all of my children, and now I'm inspired by my little puppy Rosie, the Pomeranian. So I call her Nosy Rosie. So she's gonna take us to some fabulous places as well, because she's just pure love, unconditional love, and so she's the next subject for my books.
And when will a Rosie book come out?
I think in 2016, by fall 2016, we'll see something about Rosie.
Well, I hope when we do, I hope you will come back.
I will definitely come back. This has been such a pleasure.
Oh, Nancy, thank you so much.
And thank you, and happy holidays.
Same to you, too. And everybody, perfect holiday gifts.
Yes.
Go out and get Mermaids on Mars, Jude's Moon, Roy G. Biv, I Wish, Circus in the Sky. They're fabulous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
All right, have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we're going to take a short break after our lovely children's book hour here. And when we come back, we're going to hear from the filmmakers of Point Break. Located in the heart of Screenland, Culver City Observer is the #1 newspaper in Culver City, covering local news, politics, and community events, with sports by Mitch Chortkoff and movie reviews by Debbie Lynn Elias. Culver City Observer is the place to go to be in the know. When you think Culver City and the heart of Screenland, think Culver City Observer. When you think movies and movie reviews, think Culver City Observer. Culver City Observer, a division of Arizona Newspaper Group, is available in print and online at www.culvercityobserver.com. And we're back, and we're going to jump right in, because we only have about 4.5 minutes left. We're going to jump right into Point Break. This is the 21st century version of Catherine Bigelow's original Point Break with Patrick Swayze, Keanu Reeves. This one stars my friend Edgar Ramirez and Luke Bracey in the roles of Bodie and Utah. This time, we travel around to 11 different countries, 4 continents, and extreme sports of every conceivable fashion is incorporated into the shooting, directed by Ericson Core. Ericson also is his own DP, cinematographer. Many of you may know some of Ericson's work from Invincible, starring Mark Wahlberg, about a Philadelphia Eagle. We're sticking with the Philly film theme today, guys. At the recent press conference for the film with Edgar, Luke, Ericson, Phil Boston, second unit director. There were 4 second unit directors on Point Break, each one with a different specialty. Mick Rogers, decades long stuntman. One of his primary functions has always been doubling for Mel Gibson. He is also a motocross expert. Phil Boston, surfing experts. He lends Chasing Mavericks and Billabong Odyssey. Matt Kutcher, free-water diver, was the second unit director for the water unit. And then Jonathan Taylor handled the snowboarding. So I asked Ericson and Phil, because they were at the press conference, the importance of these 4 second unit directors.
It's a good question. It was extraordinarily important because of all the locations in the world that we shot, 11 countries, 4 continents. It was impossible for us to do it all. That's how I did it on Invincible, and it was great. Second University, and I did all of that, which was great. In this case, it required specialty people such as Phil and Nick, as you well know, to do specialty units and shoot in different areas. But I tried to approach it differently, knowing and working as a DP for a long time. I thought it was very important, so I did something very unique on this film that isn't typically done. Phil and I talked about this a lot. We shot all the second unit work prior to the first unit work. That was incredibly important to me because I know the difference. If you do a standard feature film, you go up, you set up a scene, you decide to shoot it, and you put your guys in position, your actors, and they say, okay, great, cut. All right, stunt guys take over. And they go, well, they weren't really standing in the right place. They weren't doing it properly for the sport. It doesn't really make sense, but the check clears, we're going to do it. And that's typically the way it's done. In this case, based on the weather environments and the conditions, it was extremely important to be authentic. That was why Chris, Jeb, Xavier Del Rue, and so many of the other, Laird Hamilton and others got involved with us because my promise was to do it authentically and for real. So as a result, it was very important to do the action unit first to understand what the conditions were, what Mother Nature was giving us, and what was possible, and push the limits to the extreme. And then through that, we integrated very carefully with our athletes and with our second unit teams in order to get Luke, Edgar, and the other actors to do exactly what was necessary to be accurate. So we wanted to have no BS in the film. We wanted to make sure that no one from any extreme sport, whether it be surfing, snowboarding, climbing, base jumping, wingsuiting, looked at it and said, that's wrong. What you guys did was completely wrong. It was a Hollywood version of our stuff. We weren't doing it more to document it and have it in reality, so that was incredibly important.
And when Point Break comes out on Christmas Day, you're going to see just how important all of that was. You know, I mean, Jeb Corliss is the #1 wingsuit stunt pilot in the world. Chris Sharma, #1 professional free rock climber. You're going to see scenes in this film of Edgar Ramirez and Luke Bracey hanging off Angel Falls, being at the very top of Mont Blanc. They were actually there. They did that. They hung off of Angel Falls. But guys like Chris would step in, and when it came to the final execution, they would then execute the extreme sport. That is all the time we have today. We're going to hear some more on Point Break next week, plus Star Wars. And next week, Timur Bekmambetov will be with us. You don't want to miss that. Until then,